My Lords, we've more bad news this morning from the ONS on job numbers in hospitality. And I think that makes it even more important that we receive clear answers to the following questions. Why did the government not get the new rating arrangements right first time in the budget, when we now know that they already had the relevant information on pubs from the Valuation Office Agency? Following briefing to the FT last week, not only pubs, but also restaurants and hotels do not know where they stand from the 1st of April. This is agony for them. When will the government make a clear statement of their intentions?
Well, as the noble lady knows, and as I've said before, the previous revaluation was based on property values during the COVID pandemic, which meant rateable values were much lower. That does mean that some businesses, including retail, hospitality and leisure venues, are now seeing an increase as a result of this valuation. But at the budget, we therefore announced 3 elements of support at a total cost of £4.3 billion. We implemented transitional relief. We've capped the increase for any businesses whose value has increased, so they are no longer eligible for small business rates relief. And we've expanded the Supporting Small Businesses scheme. But quite rightly, the noble lady does say, and I do acknowledge, and as I've said in your Lordship's House before, that for pubs and others, the revaluation does mean that they will struggle in relation to the business rates applicable to them. That's why we are working with the sector to ensure it gets the support it needs. Noble Lords will have heard what the Prime Minister and the Chancellor have both said on this in recent days. I'm not going to add to that now or comment on speculation. When there are further comments to be made, I'm sure I will be back here to discuss them with Noble Lords.
Music venues and recording studios do not qualify for RHL relief because of the way visiting members of the public is defined. Will ministers commit to reviewing or amending the eligibility criterion so that businesses integral to the creative economy are not excluded?
I do absolutely hear what the noble lord says, and I understand absolutely the points that he's making. As I've said, noble lords will have heard what the Prime Minister and Chancellor have said in recent days. I'm not going to add to that now, but when there are further comments to be made, I'm sure I will be able to discuss them with the noble lord.
Tell me, when we're talking about business rates, the many thousands now of Turkish barbers, as they're so called, the vape shops, the nail bars, which are all cash only, which have infected our villages, our towns and our cities, are any of them paying any business rates? Are any of them paying tax? We know that most of them are about money laundering, organised crime, county lines drugs. They are getting away for free. The whole thing seems to be for free, and they're laughing at us. Meanwhile, our pubs and our hospitality as a whole is on a knife edge of existence. How is that fair?
Well, I agree with a great deal of what the noble lady says, and HMRC have announced, I think, quite substantial measures to crack down on some of the businesses that noble lady mentions, and I think you'll have seen, noble lady will have seen several of those businesses closing in recent months, and she's quite right. Of course, more needs to be done. She's absolutely right too to talk about the importance of the hospitality industry. We completely recognise that it plays an incredibly important role in the UK economy, employing over 2 million people and vital to the life of high streets across the UK, and we will absolutely do what we can to support that industry.
Lord. Repeat the adage I used formerly, which is measure twice, cut once. Does the Minister understand, though, that there is real urgency to get response and relief now within the hospitality industry and for pubs, that as they face uncertainty, many believing that the blows had ended went ahead and hired or invested and are now unsure whether or not they are economically viable? And has he looked at this sort of uncertainty and the impact that it's had, particularly on the independents, who I understand are being disproportionately affected?
do understand a lot of what the noble lady says, and I agree with a lot of what she says. It's important that we are able to create the certainty for those businesses that is so important. I would, though, just say we did spend £4.3 billion at the time of the budget in support of exactly the businesses that she is describing. We are implementing transitional relief to cap the amount that bills increase for businesses who would otherwise have seen big increases. For any business whose values increase so they are no longer eligible for small business rates relief, we're capping that increase. And we've expanded the supporting small businesses scheme. As I say, that's at a total cost of £4.3 billion. So we absolutely do recognise the issues facing those businesses. But as I say, I've already said that for pubs and others, the revaluation does mean they will struggle in relation to the business rates applicable to them. And that is exactly why we are working with the sector to ensure that it gets the support that it needs.
My Lords, the retail and hospitality industries are often where those youngsters who are finding it very difficult to get into the workplace get their first foothold. So, understandably, there have to be increases in the overheads that these organisations are paying. But could the Noble Lord the Minister look at ways in which these organisations might be helped to bring some of those people who really need their first job into the employment market?
Well, the Noble Lady is absolutely right. The important role that those businesses play in giving young people their first jobs, and I think what she says is right, and I agree with her. We are taking significant measures, I think, to help the UK hospitality sector. As she says, it employs over 2 million people and is absolutely vital to high streets across the UK. Based on recommendations from the Licensing Task Force, we published a new national licensing policy framework for the hospitality sector. At the time of the budget, we're exploring planning reforms to help pubs and hospitality to expand. And the Hospitality Support Fund has helped pubs in rural areas to diversify, ensuring they can continue in their role as vital community hubs.
Lords, there's no doubt that the pub companies the tenants are facing major problems in the UK. But does he agree with me that while those pubs are struggling, brewers' profits and brewers and pub companies are making record profits? Isn't it time they pass that on to the pub itself?
Well, my noble friend is correct to say that the pubs have for a long time been struggling in this economy. I think in the previous 14 years of the last government, 7,000 pubs closed in the UK. So this is a long-standing issue. In terms of the wider question he asks, I'm more than happy to look into that.
Former Chief Executive of the British Beer and Pub Association. I'm only too conscious of the problems that the hospitality industry have faced over a large number of years. But I must say that the Minister's answer, and I listened from the Peers Gallery in the Commons yesterday to the Minister's answers, the unwillingness to give any indication to the industry, whichever fields may be covered, as to when decisions will be given to them, means that they are totally unable to plan. And the Minister's answer yet again today gave no indication of whether there will be a response soon, at some time in the next few weeks, or before the next financial year starts.
I don't think I heard a question at the end there, but as I've said already, we are working with the sector to ensure that it gets the support that it needs.
My Lords, given my noble friend's question, given the importance of hospitality for employment, and in a previous question about the number of young people that are unemployed, why is hospitality not included in the government's industrial strategy?
That's an excellent question. I think, of course, we have separate strategies for the hospitality, retail, hospital and leisure sector. I think in terms of the industrial strategy, it's trying to do something different from what that strategy is doing. I think that just because one is not in the industrial strategy doesn't mean we don't value that sector extremely highly and do all we can for that sector.
There are many charity shops in the high streets across this country. They receive 80% mandatory relief and often up to 100% discretionary. Many of these charities are actually multi-million-pound businesses, and notwithstanding the pressures on the high street and the pressures to small businesses, obviously with this forthcoming increases, would the Minister agree with me that perhaps it's about time that we looked into this issue to make sure that those on the high street were paying a fair rate for their business rates.
Good point.
Well, I don't disagree with what the noble lady says, and I think it's very important to say that we are fundamentally reforming the business rate system by introducing permanently lower business tax rates for over 750,000 retail, hospitality and leisure properties funded by a higher rate on the most valuable properties, and I think that's absolutely the right thing to do.